So let's get through the second part of the doctor's opinion. Basically, AA asked Dr. Silkworth to expand upon his first letter to them, and this is it. So the physician at our request gave us this letter. Has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. In this statement, he confirms that we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe, very important here, that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defects. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us, but we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. So, when we're drinking and using, are we nutty in the head? Yeah, I did a lot of stuff in my active addiction I'm not proud of. And also, once alcohol is put into my system, one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. Why is it that some people have what they call a beer leg and other people can drink 3 or 4 glasses of wine and then that's it for them? Well, likely the person with a beer belly, or using this as an example, not being specific to a person with a beer leg, so to say, they absorb alcohol differently, which means when we metabolize alcohol or a substance, our brain doesn't really understand how much has been put into our system because we've kind of altered that throughout our using. And then all of a sudden you get up from drinking and you're like on the floor and have peed yourself. This is because the allergy has taken effect. Your body really has no idea how much substance is in it. And this is why, you can drink more than your friends or so on and so forth. And that's the crux of it there. That's really what the allergy is about. And this is true really for anybody who has a substance issue. We just don't know when too much is too much. That's really it. And this is because our body, our metabolism is really kind of working against us, and our mind doesn't recognize, oh shoot, I've had too much. We're metabolizing it at a different rate than other people. There is nothing you can train your body to metabolize drugs and alcohol in a different way than somebody else. And likely, if you're using drugs, you've also used alcohol. Like for me, cocaine helped me get through a real drunk spell at the bar, right? That's kind of what happened. So anyways, I'll continue to read. As laymen, our opinion as to its soundness may of course mean little, but as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that his explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as the altruistic, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as he has then a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. The doctor writes, "The subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcohol addiction. I say this after many years' experience as a medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcoholic and drug addiction." Remember, drug addiction was always a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detailed in these pages. Please, this is very important. We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to an alcoholic addict, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. So they knew that there had to be a moral psychology. Well, what's a moral psychology? I can tell you when I'm drinking, I have no morality. My morality is pissed up pants, shitty asshole, and looking for my next bottle of booze, and could care less how I look, how I smell, or who I'm robbing. I don't give a shit. Even if it comes into drugs, I don't care my morality, it doesn't exist. And this is really, there needs to be a change in our morality. And the doctor said here, they had no way of really doing that for somebody. They could fix the body, they could fix the mind to a certain extent, but they could not fix the morality of the addict. Continue to read. What with our ultra modern standard, our scientific approach to everything, we have perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors of this book came under our care in this hospital, and while here he acquired some ideas which he put into practical application at once. Later he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgivings. So they didn't want Bill to go and talk to any of the other folks in the hospital. We consented. So they finally gave in. The case we have followed through have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness of these men, as we have come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive, and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has labored long and wearily in the alcoholic field. They believe in themselves, and still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of hell. This is very important. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical cravings for liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. We believe, and so suggest, a few years ago that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to the class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. So what they're basically saying here is, do you remember your graduation? Just a simple question for you. Do you remember your graduation? Because before I even remember my graduation, I remember my first drunk. I remember the blackout of my first drunk. That's us. That's what we do. I remember the first time I used drugs and getting so high. I don't remember anything that happened after getting high, but I definitely remember my first time getting high, right? That's not normal. Normal people don't attribute events in their life at times that they were stoned or they were drunk. The other thing that we need to recognize here is the reason why they're using alcohol is because back in the 30s and 40s, they had an epidemic, just like we are seeing with the opiate epidemic in today's world, with alcohol, because alcohol was banned and they had bathtub gin and people were dying from it. Same idea. That happened then, and it's happening now with a different substance. But the reality is addiction is the same whether it's alcohol or drugs. It doesn't really matter. I'll continue to read because this is going to be longer than a 10-minute video. If any feel that a psychiatric's directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental. Let them stand with us a while on the firing line. See the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work, and even of their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel, after many years of experience, that we have found nothing which was contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now growing up among them. Very important here. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol or drugs. The sensation is so elusive that they, while they admit it injurious, they cannot after time differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic addiction life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontent unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks or drugs or ingesting drugs, which they see others take with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, the phenomenon of craving develops. They pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again or use again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of their recovery. So, the cycle of addiction. I don't want to use, it's Friday, maybe I'll have a drink, and the next thing you know, Monday comes around and you just destroyed your life inside of 3 days. Before I would go out on a spree, I would literally tell people, I'm going out to destroy myself this weekend. And I would do so. Every weekend. I didn't think there was any other way to live. And even when things got worse for me, I didn't think that there was another way to live besides the life of an addict. And a psychic change needed to happen. We talked about the morality. They're getting to that also here. Continue to read, and still very important. On the other hand, and strange as it may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. I today don't have, it's not challenging for me not to use. The thought doesn't even really come into my mind. It really has been lifted from me. I don't desire it, don't need it, don't want it. Even if it's around, there's never a thought of, just maybe. No, I know when I drink and I use, crappy things happen in my life, and that's always going to be the case time and time and time and time again. Men have cried out to me in sincere and desperate appeal, Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me. Faced with these problems, if a doctor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. Although he gives all that is in him, it often is not enough. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. Though the aggregate of recoveries resulting from psychiatric effort is considerable, we physicians must admit we have made little impression upon the problem as a whole. Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach. Continue to read. Very, very important here. I do not hold with those who believe that alcoholism is entirely a problem of mental control. I have had many men who had, for example, worked a period of months on some problem or business deal which was to be settled on a certain day favorable to them. They took a drink a day or so prior to the date, and then the phenomenon of craving at once became paramount to all other interests, so that the important appointment was not met. These men were not drinking to escape, they were drinking to overcome a craving beyond their mental control. So self-sabotaging behavior, right? We're not drinking because we want to, we have to. That's the fact. There are many situations which arise out of the phenomenon of craving which cause men to make the supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight. The classification of alcoholics, addicts, seem most difficult and in much detail is outside the scope of this book. There are, of course, the psychopaths who are emotionally unstable. We are all familiar with this type. They are always going on the wagon for keeps. They are over remorseful and make many resolutions, but never a decision. There is the type of man who is unwilling to admit that he cannot take a drink. He plans various ways of drinking. He changes his brand or his environment. So, like, instead of using this drug dealer, I use that drug dealer. All of this stuff. Instead of gin, I'm going to drink whiskey. We all do that. He cannot drink without danger. There is the manic depressive type who is perhaps the least understood by his friends and about whom a whole chapter could be written. Then there are the types entirely normal. There are types entirely normal in every respect except in the effect alcohol has upon them. They are often able, intelligent, friendly people. All these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be manifested of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been, by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently eradicated. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. So, entire abstinence. You want to be relieved of any niche or want to continue. It's entire abstinence. I'm not saying that harm reduction or those programs aren't advantageous. They are definitely advantageous. But I would suggest that the goal should be entire abstinence at some point. If you are a real addict / alcoholic. This immediately precipitates us into a seething cauldron of debate, which has been written pro and con, but among physicians, the general opinion seems to be that most chronic alcoholics are doomed. What is the solution? Perhaps I can best answer this by relating one of my experiences. We're getting to almost 20 minutes, so I'm going to leave that to you. It's a doctor's opinion, XXXX1, XXXXI. I can probably finish it tomorrow, but I would really like to get into step 2, so we'll see what happens. Question for you, did you do that step work? If you go down to that bottom of the step work that I asked you or suggested that you do yesterday, I want you to write in the con list of the using part. If I continue to do this, my spiritual evolution will not grow. And then on the abstinence side or the recovery side, I want you to write at the bottom of the page, if I continue to do this, my spiritual evolution will grow. These are the things that we need to concentrate on. If you go to drinking and using, there is no pro. That's all the lies we tell ourselves. It's all a con. And it's the con job that we're doing on ourselves. The not using side, the recovery side, even though there's a con in there, those are probably, just shooting from the hip here, haven't read it, are probably all short-term cons. Like, I'm going to lose my friends. I'm going to feel like shit. All of that stuff. Can't deal with my emotional pain. We're going to get to that. But those are all short-term things that can be overcome. The issue with using is if we continue to use, we'll never get over that stuff. And we're going to continue to beat ourselves up with that stuff. So, without ever reading your step work, obviously, I don't know, just put that down at the bottom, and it's going to make sense later on as we go through this. I hope you all have a beautiful day today. Sorry I'm about 10 minutes long, but there is a heck of a lot of reading there. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll check out another video tomorrow. Bye for now.